All right. Hi, everybody. This is Tracy Donegan from Gentle Birth and the Mindful Breastfeeding Program. And I'm really excited today to welcome Isadora Ambrose from the UK, who is going to share with us her expertise and her experiences on safe bed sharing, which is a big topic. Well, I mean, sleep in general is a huge topic for new parents. But we're going to talk about how mothers can get more sleep by having baby safely close to them in bed at night, so and during the daytime for naps. So welcome, Isadora. Thank you for joining me from the UK today. Please tell me a little bit about where your interest in this topic developed from.
Sharing. Yes, so I'm Isadora, also known as Happy CoSleeper. A lot of people know me as Happy CoSleeper. How it started is with my eldest son. He basically did not sleep. So I think is how bed sharing starts for a lot of us. You know, you have a baby that will not sleep. I tried putting him in the cot several times and it wouldn't work. I'd be awake for the entire night trying again and again. And he just was one of those babies. He just would not separate. And I ended up falling asleep several times with him in bed without planning. And in the end, I just decided it felt so right to me to have him next to me. And I just felt, you know, I'm doing all of this. I'm trying to get him into the cot, but it doesn't feel right to me. I don't want to separate from him either. And he clearly doesn't want or can't separate from me. And so I started researching bed sharing and co-sleeping, how to do it safely, what can and can't you do, when can and can't you do. And I realized that it is possible to do it safely. And from the moment that we decided to do that, and I've set my space up safely to have him in there, had a conversation with my husband, we've all agreed that's what's happening. We've all slept. And it was the first time in many months that we've slept. And I was at a point that I did not know what to do anymore. I was break point, really. It was either sleep training, which for me, I could not do it. I just couldn't get to do it. Or what do? I need to sleep. I can't spend the whole night awake. And that worked for us. It just made a huge difference. And then I became very passionate about it. I started studying sleep. I trained with Lindsay Hookway in the UK. I trained with a Canadian lady as well, Lauren from Isla Grace, which is the baby-led sleep specialist program. And I've just learned about normal infant development. And basically the idea was to learn that to help myself, because I was in such a situation that I thought I'll pay however much money just to know everything that I need to know about baby sleep, because I need to fix this. And then I realized that it wasn't about fixing. It was about understanding. It was about lowering my expectations and understanding and trying to find other ways to help him, to other, red flags and things that could be obstructing his sleep. And that's where it started, and it went from there. I kind of specialized in supporting co-sleeping families and just became very passionate about, normalizing that and helping families understand that if that's your situation, if you have to have your baby in your bed because they will not sleep anywhere else, there is a way for the majority of families to do that safely.
Okay. And have you other children? Have you continued this tradition?
Yes, I've got 3 now. I'm on my 3rd one. He's 10 months now. And I co-slept with all of them. The oldest 2 now sleep in their own bed. They are 3 and 5. And they sleep in their own bed. They have no issues with sleep anymore. And my little one, he's just breastfeeding through the night. So, there's no plans at the moment to stop that. People ask me a lot, when are you going to night wean him? And I don't know. Whenever he is ready, there are no plans right now.
Yeah.
And I also love it. I actually enjoy it, because I realize there are people who do it. A lot of people do it because they have to do it. Other people do it because they enjoy it, but then it comes to a point that they want to stop it. For me, I cannot see another way. For me, there is no way to separate breastfeeding and sleeping together is just so hard. You know, for an organization like the AAP, for example, in the US, they say you have to breastfeed, and breastfeed until your baby is 2, but do not bed share. How do you do that? It's very difficult to breastfeed throughout the night without bed sharing. It's really
it is. It's so interesting. Just before we started this call today, we were just briefly discussing the difference in, I guess, approaches from the UK and the US. Whereas the US, it's very much a finger wagging breastfeed, but not here, and only in this place. And whereas, and it's up to healthcare providers, they're, you know, the ones kind of, you know, it's very authoritative. And then you have the UK, which is much more focused on, well, let's give parents the information, I guess, give them the evidence to help the parents make that decision for what's right for them. And my own experience with, I didn't know anything about co-sleeping, or on my first is now 20. Wish I'd had known more about it and trusted myself, because I think there's, especially on your first baby, I think there's that bit of anxiety over rolling over on the baby, or we see these headlines and tragic accidents that can happen. But when I planned on breastfeeding my second little fella who's 13 now, and again, it was like, okay, I can't do this and like function as a, you know, a sane human being during the daytime and go to work. And actually I was in college at the time and studying midwifery, and I thought, okay, so why not, why like, and then I same journey as you. It's like, why is this when it feels so wrong? So I started to, again, I set up my space, made sure it was safe, and we were very lucky. And I know a lot of families aren't fortunate to have like a spare room. So my husband, I sent him off to the spare room because I didn't trust that having him there, you know. So I was like, let's just, and we slept like, and my Cooper would feed continuously through the night. And if I was getting up out of bed, and I think of like a first-time mom who's getting up to sit in that rocking chair that they spend a lot of money on a really sore, tender perineum, or they've had a cesarean birth, and it's so interruptive of postpartum healing, even like before we even look at the benefits. But I when I started to do it, I would kind of wake up in the morning like, what, like how many times did he nurse during the night? Because I had no memory of it. We were so in tune. And I remember my parents staying over one weekend, and the comment that they made, and it always stuck with me, and they said, you wouldn't even think there was a baby in the house because we didn't hear any crying, because literally, as I say, you know, the baby buffet was right next to him, and there was no,
you see babies, they're a lot more settled. I mean, obviously it's not always the case. You might have an unsettled baby for whatever other reason, but in general, you know, your baby is not going to cry for you in the night. They have everything that they need right there. So you have much more settled nights, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, so it worked for us, and understanding how to do that safely was really important. But I want to start kind of like with a big question. So I've seen recently in kind of bed sharing communities and other experts saying that, you know, safe co-sleeping saves lives. So what does that mean? Because immediately when I think a lot of people hear about co-sleeping or bed sharing, they're thinking the opposite. They're thinking danger and putting baby at risk. But can you tell me more about how is it helping babies?
I think, you know, a lot of people have this idea that co-sleeping doesn't save lives, exactly the opposite. And I think that can be true. The other statement can also be true. It really depends how you do it. And the fact that the reason why we believe that it saves life is that when you know how to do it safely, you are going to end up avoiding all those dangerous situations that you are put in if you don't know how to co-sleep safely, and you are so scared of co-sleeping safely that you end up co-sleeping on a sofa or on an armchair. You fall asleep accidentally, even on your bed. You bring your baby to feed in bed and you haven't planned it. Your bed is not set up safely. to bed share. So you end up doing it accidentally. We know that the risks are much higher when bed sharing, co-sleeping is unplanned. And the other reason is, when you talk, I'm using here interchangeably the terms co-sleeping and bed sharing, but it's very different, right? When you talk about co-sleeping could be sleeping on a sofa. It could be sharing it could be room sharing. Room sharing is considered co-sleeping. Sleeping on a sofa, sleeping on an armchair, anywhere that you are sharing sleep, it's considered co-sleeping. Bed sharing in general, it's understood to be sharing just the bed. However, if you look at the latest AAP reports on safe sleep, their latest update, it does have a definition there of bed sharing, parents and infants sleeping together on any surface, including a bed, a couch, or a chair. So I do not know why they define it like that, because it's obvious. It's the Q is in the name, right? It's bed sharing, and that's a problem. That's a real problem, because then when you look at research is saying bed sharing is not safe. But what do you actually mean about that? Do you mean couch? Do you mean a chair? What do you mean? Because we know that risks are 50 times higher of SIDS, even SIDS, but also accidental death, if you're sleeping with your baby on a couch. So all of those things, obviously you can co-sleep very unsafely, but if you know how to do it safely, you are actually saving lives. You are actually avoiding all those, the things that actually increase the risks are the things that you are doing without planning, are the things that you're doing without knowing how to co-sleep safely. So I feel personally the message that the AAP sends out in the US, I think it's a very simplistic message. And I think that's the idea. Let's give out a very simplistic message that everyone understands, because it is a problem. It can be done unsafely, and it's impossible for an organization to say everyone can do this safely, because they don't know whether your bed is firmer enough, or whether you're sleeping with a duvet and you pull your duvet up and you cover your baby's head in the middle of the night. So it's impossible for them to know exactly whether it's going to be safe. There are so many nuances to bed sharing. How is it safe or not? So it's very hard to give specific recommendations of this is definitely safe all the time. The researchers don't know that. We don't have enough research yet. There's so many areas of
and just on the research, like from what I understand about the research, it's because this is not something you can't run a randomized controlled trial on bed sharing or co-sleeping. So they're all usually case studies that we see.
Looking backwards.
Yes, and case studies are usually considered low quality evidence. So when we look at, and you're familiar with Professor Helen Ball, and I'm a big follower and big fan of her work as well, as I think she's an anthropologist and she specializes in infant sleep. But I've heard her in the past talk about these weird cultures where but she's actually kind of talking about modern day Western cultures that have this expectation that the baby's just going to come out and sleep for 12 hours and everyone's going to, like, the baby's going to completely fit into a busy schedule of this family. And then we look at countries like Japan, where I saw some fascinating data there saying, like, I think Western countries, we have just this ridiculous expectation that newborn babies won't wake, and we just don't have an understanding of what happens with newborns when they get here and they're adjusting and their whole sleep cycle. And we look at Japan, where, so US, UK, maybe not so much UK, but definitely US, there is this
I think
idea
in the UK as well. I think in the UK,
and
a lot of
Ireland
the Western maybe it's the recommendations are starting to change here. So I feel that in general people are more open to these new ideas, that it's okay to have your baby there. But I think there's still quite a lot of the idea of independence. And I think in the US, independence is very valued in the US.
Yeah.
And here as well, I think in every Western country where there is, you know, the focus on economy and getting mothers out there working, and there is this focus on you have to separate the mother and the baby, right? So you know
and
that
push them out the door as quickly as possible to make them, like, it's like forcing independence rather than letting that independence evolve and grow within a nurturing space with the family. But what I thought with this data coming from Japan was something like only 7% of in this particular study of Japanese parents considered their newborn to have like sleep issues, you know, whereas, and I thought, because they generally would share a family bed, and it's totally normal for, you know, for safe co-sleeping to happen, and they have some of the lowest rates of SIDS in the world as well. So it's, I think we have to look outside of the US and outside of the UK for where is it being done safely, and has been for many, many years. And it's, but we had this expectation. I think we know, yes, we're going to have a baby and we're going to be sleep deprived, but we can fix any problems. So we can, and for oftentimes, as you were saying, like that idea of, you know, when we're trying to fix the problem, we're introducing more risks for SIDS. So either baby is moved out of the room sooner into their own room, or the belief that, well, if I add formula, if I formula feed, then baby will sleep longer, and we know that these are associated with an increased risk of SIDS. But so, when would it not be safe to bed share?
Yes, right. So we have there are some clear. I think it is the right way to put it when it's not safe, because when it's safe, still what we don't know yet, risks always exist. So it's we always look at bed sharing as a risk reduction thing. So the way when I'm talking about it on my page, I'm always talking about risk reducing.
Yes.
You can never eliminate risk completely, but you can definitely reduce it.
Yeah.
To a point that if you look at the data, it's quite clear that safe bed sharing, it's probably as safe, if not safer, than a baby sleeping separately in a crib. So, you know, it's not something that it's open there, but when you look at the data, we know that it's only 52% of deaths that are, when you look at SIDS, here in the UK, the latest National Child Mortality Database figures, they show that when you look at sudden and unexpected deaths, just over half are while sharing a bed. And sorry, not sharing a bed, co-sleeping. So sharing a surface for sleep. So 48% baby sleeping in a crib, a cot separately, 52% baby sharing sleep with an adult or a sibling. Now, when we know that of those, so the total is 124 deaths, that was year 2020, I believe. 64 out of those were unplanned. Sorry, 64 were the the co-sleeping deaths. 60% they were unplanned, and 92% were in hazardous situations. And those hazardous situations, they include things like, you know, the smoking. So we are going to talk about it now. But smoking, consuming alcohol, drugs, or medication that makes you feel drowsy, sleeping in a surface that is not firm, so soft surfaces, or obviously sleeping on a sofa or an armchair, somewhere that wasn't planned for bed sharing. 92% of deaths are in those circumstances. And this data, actually, the most interesting thing is that when they look at co-sleeping, so co-sleeping is one of the things that increases the risk, but co-sleeping in general, right? So we're including sofa, we're including everything there. Co-sleeping without hazardous circumstances, the number is zero. This report shows.
Wow.
And this is the national database of child mortality database. So it's, you know, that's what collects all of the data in this country, 0 deaths without any of the known hazards. So let's just go back to the main hazards here. Let me just make sure I'm not forgetting anything. The main things are going to be smoking. Smoking increases the risks dramatically, and that can be during pregnancy. If you've smoked during pregnancy, your baby is at higher risk of SIDS. But if you were still smoking, if any of the parents are smoking, if they are going to sleep with the baby, so the person who smokes cannot sleep with the baby, whether they smoke just outside of the house or inside of the house, it does not matter. So they shouldn't sleep with the baby. That increases the risk quite dramatically. That's one of the main things when we look at the data. The other thing, like I said, no alcohol, drugs, medication. Medication is generally medication that is going to alter your sleep. So, medication that helps you sleep, or any other medication that makes you feel drowsy, it's changing how you might respond to your baby. So that's also increases the risk. Not being sleep deprived. So that's a huge one, because what parent is not sleep deprived? So the definition of not being sleep deprived in the sense of bed sharing is basically about 4 hours. What research shows is that if you can get 4 hours in a 24-hour period, you can cope. Your normal functions are not going to be altered to a point that you can't respond to your baby in the night. But if you're having less than 4 hours at night, then you might be so sleep deprived that you're going in such a deep sleep that you cannot respond to your baby effectively. So it's that cycle, isn't it? Because you can't sleep, and then you bring your baby to bed at that point where you are so sleep deprived, and then you sleep so deeply, you wake up, they are in a weird position. So that's the dangerous situation there. And another thing, the positions that you sleep, that can also be one of the things for the parent. So I'm talking first, we can look at it in 3 ways: parent, the bed, and the baby. So for the parent, those are the main things. And the position that we normally advise, it's what's being seen in research and anthropologically as well. Helen Ball has a study about that, and they've observed that breastfeeding mothers, they usually, in a few studies now, it's always been the same position that they tend to adopt, and it's that very natural position. We call it the cuddle crow, the sea crow. And it's that position that you're cuddling around your baby, you've got your arm above their head, you've got your knees bent underneath them, and we don't know exactly why and if this position is protective, but it's believed that this position is protective, not only from the sense that you are actually making a little, a little place there for them, that you're protecting them against other people that might be in bed, might not be as responsive or as aware of the baby, but you're also protecting them against bedding, against covers, pillows. They are not moving up towards the pillows because they are there. Your arm is there. So it seems to be a protective position, and it's a position that has not been observed when a parent is bottle feeding, because when a parent is bottle feeding, they, in general, the natural position tends to be they put their baby next to their face. And a lot of the times in those studies, by the Helen Ball study, they've noticed that the baby ends up on the pillow with their heads on the pillow a lot. So one of the recommendations that came out from that is that what if bottle feeding, formula feeding parents adopted that position? Is that going to be more protective? And we don't know, but all we know is that we know that breastfeeding has a lower rate of SIDS, and perhaps if the formula bottle feeding parents adopted the same position, it's likely that
I was just going to ask you that.
Yes, it's
because
likely.
I'm sure we'll have viewers and listeners who are formula feeding that are sleep deprived and struggling as well. Like all, well, I won't say all, but I will have most postpartum mothers will. Those first couple of months are really, really tough, and you're trying to salvage as many little nuggets of sleep as you can. But so, what are the guidelines around if mom is formula feeding? Should she have baby in bed with her?
it's a very complex one. When you look, there is a very famous, well-known set of recommendations by La Leche League, which is called the Safe Sleep 7. If you look at the Safe Sleep 7 says a bed-sharing mom is one of the recommendations. Why? Because obviously they are a bed-sharing organization, a breastfeeding organization. So their research is mainly based on breastfeeding mothers. When you look at Professor James McKenna, for example, who's another big name in infant sleep and especially mother and baby sleep, he came up with this term breast sleeping, which is basically the mother and the baby sleeping and breastfeeding.
So baby is kind of here at night.
They are not necessarily on the mom. They might be just sleeping on the bed next to the mom, but they are just feeding in their sleep. And that's the biological norm. If you observe mammals, how they sleep, that's how they sleep. They can sleep and feed at the same time, and it's not impacting their sleep. They are not waking up. They don't open their eyes. The mother doesn't open their eyes. So they are both sleeping, and that's the biological norm. However, so James McKenna, he studies that as well. So he is focusing on breastfeeding mothers. So a lot of the recommendations that you are going to see from these experts, these organizations, are going to be breastfeeding mother, because we know that the risks are lower. Now, why are the risks lower? We don't know for sure. It might be because there is some implication that maybe formula moms, in general, they might come from more deprived areas, or they might smoke. It might be because of those other risks, because we know that families that come from deprived areas, they are at more risks of SIDS. So it might be more the other risks than the formula itself. So all we can do at the moment, and I know I talked to a lot of families who formula feed and they sleep, pretty safely from what I can tell. And I think it's possible to reduce risks, and we have to focus on risk reduction. If you are formula feeding, you have no choice. Either you chose that for whatever reason, and that's your choice, or you've had to do it and you've tried breastfeeding as much as you can and you could not breastfeed. We don't want these parents to then feel like, okay, I've tried everything I can. I already feel bad about this, and now I have to also feel bad that I might put my baby at more risk. And it's not necessarily, we just don't know. We don't have enough evidence at this point to say that they cannot bed share at all. I think you can definitely reduce all the other risks and make it as safe as possible. So one of the things is going to be adopting that position that we know that the breastfeeding mothers adopt naturally. And if the formula feeding mothers adopt that position as well, you're likely reducing the risk. And if you're reducing all the other risks, then your risks there are going to be very, very small. If you have to look at SIDS, especially you look at the triple model of SIDS. So it's a vulnerable baby. So vulnerable baby might be a baby that has difficulty rousing. It might be because they are premature. It might be because they are low birth weight, or it might be because of something else that stops them from rousing and breathing in the correct way. And so vulnerable baby with external factors in the environment that might cause this situation to be more risky. So the things that we said, the soft surface, the smoking. So all of those things, they are the external factors. And then you've got the vulnerable time in their lives, which is the first 4 months are the period where SIDS and other deaths, accidental and suffocation, it's the period where it's the most risk. So we know that after 4 months, the risks reduce dramatically. After 6 months, 90% of SIDS, it happens before 6 months. And after 8 months, the risk is almost in existence. So a lot of the recommendations are until 12 months for so you have a little bit of a breather there to, okay, I feel safe. But, you know, a lot of the research is focused on the first 12 months because it's when we see the biggest risks. But again, the biggest risk when we see the peak of that is between 2 and 4 months. So if you know that you maybe, you know, if you are formula feeding and you know that breastfeeding has a slightly lower risk, then you're looking at reducing all these other things. So you don't smoke, you don't consume any alcohol, your sleep surface is safe. You have reduced a lot of risks there. And if you are outside of those first 4 months as well, then your risks are even lower. So you have to think, you have to think about it in a risk reducing way, I think.
Definitely.
There's no way to eliminate it.
Yeah, and life has inherent risk. No matter what we do or decisions we make, we can never ever eliminate all risk. All we can do as parents is, as you said, just reduce as many of those associated risks as we possibly can. And I think for anyone that's watching this, that is getting ready to meet your baby, there's also a difference in when you're breastfeeding, your brain releases these really lovely sleepy hormones. So when I'm teaching breastfeeding and I'm working with parents, I will tell them, I said, it's not really a case of if you will fall asleep in a dangerous setup with your child. It's when. So and it's like this is because especially when you've figured out the latch and you're comfortable and breastfeeding is easier, it gets easier as well, that it's so easy to just, you feel that it's like, I don't know what, I've never had Valium, but I think like
impossible to stay awake. And
breastfeeding is supposed to be enjoyable, and it's supposed to create this really lovely, relaxed feeling for both.
When you think about breast sleeping, so what is happening there? And your body is telling you to fall asleep. All those hormones that are present in breast milk and they are conducive to sleep. You know, you've got how do you call it? Tryptophan. I forgot.
Tryptophan, yeah.
Tryptophan. That is the precursor to melatonin. So you've got things there that are meant to make you sleep, you and your baby. And you are fighting that. You're fighting that urge because you feel it's not safe.
And for anyone who's
made it safe.
For our US audience, you will, if you've never breastfed before, but you've had Thanksgiving turkey, all that tryptophan and that feeling after Thanksgiving dinner, or your Christmas dinner, of that, like, you just want to nod off, and that's the way it feels when you're when you're breastfeeding, and it's just that tryptophan really does affect your need for sleep. So I guess one question that's going to be obviously going to come up for a lot of people is, okay, so baby's in bed with me, what's happening with intimacy with my partner? Like, well, how do you, and I know there's creative ways, but I think that's a common question of, like, the idea sometimes, like, oh, baby in bed. So how do you, when you talk to parents, what do you suggest?
I get this question so much because I share a lot of videos of myself bed sharing with my baby. And I don't have my partner in bed. We've made that decision that it was because of the safety aspect. We felt safer. And you can bed share with two people in bed. Ideally, in those first months, the baby is not going to be in the middle. They're going to be on the other side. Yeah. But my husband didn't feel comfortable himself. I didn't feel comfortable. And in the end, we felt our beds are not super big. In the UK, beds tend to be a lot smaller than in the US. So we felt more comfortable, just me and babies. It's always how it's been here. And now he sleeps in the bedroom with the boys because he also wants to be with people. But what I say to the people who ask me that is, firstly, when you have a newborn and your newborn is in bed with you and you can't leave your newborn, right? Because for 6 months, it's recommended that all sleep is supervised. So it's a tricky situation. And I think it's not something that I can necessarily comment on, because I feel everyone feels very differently about this. I've seen people saying, I've done it with the baby in bed, they were asleep and I did it. Other people think that is completely a no-go. Definitely not. Maybe move the baby to the bassinet at least. But, and so other people feel completely uncomfortable about doing anything with the baby in the same room. So, you know, in those first few months, I think it's very difficult. So if you feel up for it, because you might not even feel up for it in those first 6 months. I certainly didn't. You know, I feel I was still healing for a long time. It wasn't 6 weeks, it was 6 months. It was probably even more than that. It took me a long time to feel comfortable. And I think we have to normalize that as well, because a lot of people are not even thinking about sex in those first few months. But if it gets to a point then that you have a baby in bed, what I always advise families is when your baby becomes mobile, so whenever they even start rolling, because they can roll from a very young age, actually, without even you realizing. You can see a baby a few weeks old just rolling, and you haven't expected
I've seen newborns roll on maternity beds in hospitals, so it's you have to keep a hand on the baby all the time.
And it might be just a reflex, and they rolled, and you know. So never leave a baby alone in your adult bed. So if you are going to the sofa, a lot of people know this phrase that they never trust the sofa of a co-sleeping family, because that's where it happens. So you know, people are families that I know that do that are bed sharing. They are looking if they have the option, because I know not every family has more than one room. A lot of families are living in one room. They might be living in with family, so they might not have that option. If they have that option, there are other rooms in the house. Just be creative and, you know, shower, the sofa. But, you know, if you are going to leave your baby alone on the adult bed, I definitely recommend you put that mattress on the floor. So as soon as possible, it can be from birth. A floor bed is, you know, we see a lot. It's very trendy at the moment, but it is basically the safest way to co-sleep, is how Japan does. So when you're talking about the SIDS rates and the fact that they sleep as in a family bed, they sleep on a futon on the floor. And it's the safest way. You're not going to leave your baby on a standard adult bed, because you don't know, they could get into gaps in places that they are not, could fall off the bed. So mattress on the floor is the best, safest thing with a mobile baby. And you're going to make sure that there are, you know, you're either going to widen those gaps or fill any gaps, so there's no way baby can get entrapped anyway. That's one of the biggest things. And then if your baby is 6 months, you can leave your baby there to start the night in that bed, you know, put them to sleep, leave them there for the beginning of the night, and you go and enjoy your evening with your partner. If you have a baby, a lot of the times you are going to have to go back anyway, because your baby is waking up through the night, whether they are in a bed or in a cot crib, they are going to be needing that support anyway. But if you are bed sharing, you can leave them in a safely prepared bed, a firm bed. So, you know, we know that adult beds are not generally tested for, they are not at all tested for baby sleep. But there are things that we can make sure that they are, so that they are as safe as a crib. So you make sure that you have a firm bed. So how firm? You're going to have to test it. It's very hard to explain how firm, but you test it with your baby. You put your hand, if it bounces back immediately, that's a great thing. If there is any give, if you have a mattress that molds around you, so the famous memory foam, that's type of mattress, that's not safe, because anything that says molds around your body, it's not good. Also, it might overheat, because your baby is sinking, especially their heads are sinking to that soft surface. Overheating is a huge risk for young babies. So you're making sure your mattress is firm, your mattress is flat. Flat is very, very important. If you have those mattresses with, you know, tufts or little bumps on the top, that is a risk if your baby is sleeping on their tummy, which they shouldn't be. But if they, for example, they roll, they are kind of beginning to roll, they roll onto their tummy, and they have their faces down into one of those little pockets that the bed has, they can then start rebreathing carbon dioxide, which is another risk. So a firm bed that is flat and waterproof. Waterproof is very, very important. A lot of people talk about a mattress being breathable. that is a completely marketing thing. It's not, there is no need for a mattress to be breathable, because you're not going to put your baby down on their tummy.
Yeah.
You're to be on their backs. And once they can roll, they are not going, it's very unlikely that once they have those skills of rolling and they can roll by themselves, they are not going to have their faces down. We know studies show that once they have their faces down, they can't breathe. They are going to move that face. So a mattress being breathable is not such a concern, but a mattress being flat is important, and being waterproof, because anything, any liquid, it might be breast milk, it might be wee, it might be anything that goes into that mattress, it can grow bacteria, and then infection is another risk of SIDS as well. So those are the main things for the mattress. But as long as you have a safe environment and you've made sure there are no covers, there's nothing on the bed is clear, the room is clear, it's baby proofed, you can leave your baby there to go and enjoy your evening. Partner.
Or, and even evening might be optimistic, a few moments.
It might be an hour until they next wake up.
Yeah, and it's interesting with the mattress, because so many of the mattresses these days have these pillow tops, and so it's definitely something for I guess parents to look at. It's one more thing to add to the expense of a newborn, really, that with
the thing is, with a floor bed, if you go for that approach, a floor bed is just basically a mattress on the floor.
Yes.
If you think about how much we spend with building a whole nursery, so a nursery, you need a cot, you need a cot, a crib, the mattress, then that changes at some point, because they're going to grow out of that, so they need a toddler bed, and then they need a normal bed, so it changes several times. If you have just a mattress on the floor, it grows with your baby. You can get a firm budget mattress and just basically have that mattress on the floor. Make sure you lift it up to air, so you're not growing mold under your mattress. But you don't need a base, you don't need a fancy base or anything. You can get some slats if you prefer. If you live in a very humid area, you can get some slats to go under the mattress. But in general, I find that approach is a lot more budget friendly than having an extra room, which some people might not have, to have a nursery with all the things, changing table, this and that. So that adds up. And that's what I thought I needed before I had my baby. I had the whole nursery. We haven't all. Yes, the cot, the changing table. In the end, the baby was just with me in the bed. I was changing him on the bed. So I've never used the nursery at all. And then after that, this is the nursery. My office it became my office, because it was never used for my babies.
And when I'm talking to parents as well, and we talk about, because sleep is, and this idea of this, parent-infant sleep conflicts that, we have created really in kind of the modern world or in the Western world at least, when we don't have to add, you don't have to get a new bed, because I think, newborns are already expensive enough. But when I'm, talking to parents, and they're looking at, the mounting bills of, but like you, I on my first, especially, I bought the expensive rocking chair, and I had a beautiful Snoopy themed nursery. And when we look back, at the kind of evolution, 100,000 years ago, as hunter-gatherer tribes, can we really imagine that those breastfeeding mothers were waking up in their cave several times during the night to go and find a really uncomfortable rock to sit on to nurse several times, and then going back to lie down? It's just, we've gone so far from biology.
And it doesn't make sense when you think about the whole hunter-gatherer stuff. You wouldn't leave your baby separately, because they would cry, and the moment they cry, they are inviting predators there. So it doesn't make sense to keep them away from you. So whether it's in your bed or just right next to you, that's what is safer for sure, and that what makes sense biologically. But the whole nursery thing, what you're talking about, the chair, the rocking chair, it's funny because we spend money on comfortable. We want a chair that is as comfortable as possible for you to then fall asleep in it, because it's so comfortable that you're going to fall asleep. You're going to end up falling asleep, and then you're falling asleep in the most unsafe place. You know. So it's again going back to that thing. You were trying to make it safer. You're following the recommendations because you are scared of hurting your baby, but you were putting them in more risk. And I've heard that from so many families, that I have done that. I've put my baby into more risk before I decided that I'm going to bed share. So many families, I did the same. I fell asleep several times with my baby in the rocking chair on the sofa because I didn't know any better.
Yeah, and I think for anyone again watching who had a little one at home today and is trying to figure out naps and things, one thing that I would say as well with parents, families that I'm working with, is that when you're sitting down this afternoon and maybe you have a couple of minutes to nurse and watch a bit of TV on the couch, it's again we're creating more risk than is necessary. So why not figure out your bed so that even if it's just for a nap time. So when you're nursing and feeding, that you can be comfortable in bed, and if you have a TV, watch your TV, and both of you can be resting and nursing safely.
Absolutely.
Even for those naps, which are always,
and if
happy.
You need to, a lot of people, I will always say, enjoy the contact naps if you can, if you have the ability to enjoy that, because it really does go so fast, as you will know, Tracy. It just goes so fast. I know with my oldest two children, they just grown so fast, and I can't enjoy that anymore. And if you can enjoy it, if you can't, if for whatever reason you have other things to do, if you have a mattress on the floor, even if it's in your living area, put the cot mattress on the floor in your lounge. Lie down there, feed your baby. If you have to get up and do some jobs, I would always advise, don't do the jobs when the baby is awake in the carrier, or rather than trying to do when your baby is asleep, because it's going to create a lot of frustration. But if you have to do something while your baby is asleep, you have to see to other children, maybe. I've had that situation. I had to look after other children. So I put my baby down in a firm mattress on the floor in the lounge where we all are. And then I just roll away. We call it the ninja roll. So
I'm familiar with the ninja roll, but I really, that's such an interesting point, because and again, it's more about how society has evolved to not respect that time with our babies, that being this saying being nap trapped is such a negative. It's like, oh, you're stuck here with this baby, and when you could be doing all these other things. And of course there are circumstances when you have other children, other responsibilities, that being nap trapped can be an absolute luxury. But we're and a part of as teaching mindfulness is that, when we have the opportunity, can we be present and just slow down for a minute, and just, because the dishes and anything that can wait can wait. But we live in such a distracted age that we feel like as mothers, and Naomi Stadlin says it really well, and she has a brilliant book, What Mothers Do, especially when it looks like nothing. Because there's this idea that mothering and all of this work that we do at home is like, we don't feel productive unless
and you're essentially growing your baby brain as you hold them, as you feed them and you hold them and you sleep with them. That contact is helping their grow, their brain, and develop. So I think it's the most important work, for sure. And I agree with you that there is this focus of, put the baby down so you can do stuff. And no, you have to rest as well. You are also recovering. You deserve that rest. And it's not necessarily just rest. You're there and you might be feeding, and you're doing such an important job. So definitely, that's a very important message.
Isadora, thank you so much for joining me today. This was fascinating, and I learned lots too. And that's one of the reasons I like to do these interviews, is keep up my own education and where the evidence is. Will you tell us a little bit about where people can find you and all your social media? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm mainly on Instagram, so it's Happy CoSleeper. You can find me on Facebook as well, but I'm mainly focusing on Instagram. And And yes, I think that's the best place to find me. A lot of the stuff that I do on Instagram is about that normalization, like I said before, normalizing. I share a lot of my own journey to show people that they are not
Yeah.
alone. That, I get so many messages from people when they see my videos sleeping. It's my night. I share my whole entire night
Yeah.
breast sleeping with my baby on my Instagram. And I get a lot of offense as well. I get a lot of negative comments from people who just do not understand and do not
Yes.
know about the evidence, or maybe they, were brought up in a different way and they don't understand that. But I still continue to do it because the amount of messages that I get from people saying, I cannot believe that someone else does that, because I do that. That's exactly how my night looks like. I do exactly that. And I didn't know. I just didn't know someone else did exactly the same.
And so many women and so many parents are shamed when they talk about
they
say
don't want to talk
co-sleeping,
about it.
and they lie
Because it's
to
almost like a crime,
their
isn't
provider.
it?
Yeah, it's like
In the
because they
US,
know
it's like,
this is what's coming. Yeah.
and you talk to your health providers, as you said, at least even here actually, but I think it's probably changing. With my first, I remember talking to the health visitor, and it was, no, you should not do that. And this time around, I don't know if I'm so much more confident about it, and this is what I do, and I know how to do it safely. I'm informed, but the response has been very different. But I hear a lot from people on my page when they come and talk to me on my DMs, saying that, I told my doctor, they told me absolutely I should not be doing that. So they feel scared about talking, and they find, so my community, I found that they find that place that they can just talk about it. They can share their concerns, their challenges. I also have a Facebook community that is it's only been open about 3-4 months ago, and it's got already 30 something K followers,
Wow.
members. And it's all people who are doing that. And they it's all people who are co-sleeping, they're bed sharing, they want to learn how to do it more safely, they want to share their challenges. So go there and, talk to other parents as well, and see that it's not just you. You're not alone in this journey. And the safe stuff is all on my page. I share a lot of that. I also have my my course, my gentle transition course. A lot of people think that, co-sleeping, that's it, you're stuck, you have a baby that is going to be in your bed until they're 18.
Oh yeah.
And it's not. In my experience, I haven't done anything with my babies. I've just let them kind of follow their course, and they will naturally start sleeping independently in their own time. However, their own time might not be your time. It might be that you feel that doesn't work for me, I need to do something. And doing something, it's not necessarily sleep training. The stuff that I do is not sleep training at all. I don't believe that we need to train babies to sleep separately, but I believe that there are ways, for example, of optimizing your routines, of gentle strategies that focus on connection instead of focusing on that separation. So when parents are wanting to move away from that, they got to the point that whatever it is, whether they want more connection with their partner, or whether, for whatever reason, they just want their space.
Yeah.
There are ways to do that through connection, through respecting your child's time, and doing it in a very gentle way that doesn't focus on, this is what I'm going to train you to sleep in this way and not call for me. So we don't do that. So you can find lots of support on my pages, on my social
Great,
media.
thank you. And I will, yes, I'll include the links in the interview as well, just so people can find you easily. And thank you for your work and for supporting parents to make informed and safe decisions about such a big topic for all parents, and especially those early months of adjustment. But yeah, thank you. This was really insightful and helpful.
No problem. It was lovely speaking to you as well.
Thank you.
Take care.